President Buhari launches $890 million Global Fund Health Intervention Grant.
This generous funding will complement our investments in the health sector, help curb new infections, and reduce HIV/AIDS.
National Economic Council to give more attention to monitoring and evaluation processes in the public sector to curb leakages.
Program as well as projects and providing a source of reliable, meaningful information for the citizens in order to assess government policy.
Court of Appeal dismisses APC suit against Edo State Governor Godwin Obaseki.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss sustainable water management.
All right, so if you're an ardent listener to Afrobeat music, then you will know that late fella Anikulapo Kuti was, I should say, is the undeniably father of Afrobeat music in Nigeria. Now, most of his songs...
Not just in Nigeria,
well,
but globally.
Globally. So most of his songs, either mirror or predict our reality. And I remember quite a number of tracks, that are my favorite. Shakara, African Lady, I'm sure you know. African Lady, she go say.
Fela's music is evergreen, and most of his songs are capable of even stirring revolution, if you like.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. So whether you understand the language of his music or not, Fela's songs will certainly move you to either swing along or tap your feet to the rhythm of those musical instruments. But beyond entertainment, Fela's music would always evoke deep reflection, as I said, on the symbolic reality of the lyrics of his songs. But one of his classic hits, Omi Olota, Water, You No Get Enemy, captures the essence of our conversation this morning. It speaks to the universality of water in our daily lives. Kieran.
All right. Of course, the chant, water, you no get enemy, reflects the universality of the value of water, as you said, from cooking, washing, bathing, and even for therapeutic purposes. He says, if your head they cool, they're hot,
Now water go cool. You're not fluent in pidgin language.
Exactly. And there's also the belief, according to Fela, that water is used to resuscitate a drowning child. Fela's message is that there is water to serve all of our daily needs.
Indeed, the value of water cannot be overstressed, and this has been captured in many notable quotes on water. For instance, without prejudice to some religious injunctions on love, Hugh Auden, that's a British-American poet, once wrote that, and I quote, "Thousands have lived without love, but none without water."
Existing scientific data estimates that 71% of the Earth's cover is water. Regardless, only less than 1% of the Earth's water is available for human use. Nigeria is blessed with rich and abundant water resources. In addition to underground water, every part of the country is blessed with surface water with more than 200 cubic meters annually. And Claire, we have several thousands of cubic meter of water, both surface and underground water. But what I think is the issue at the moment is how to manage this resource.
And just to add, Kieran, that most of the country, 36 states, if you reflect, take their names from river sources. Unfortunately, as you said earlier, the country is suffering from, what developmental economists will describe as economic water scarcity. Now, access to safe drinking water is also a challenge and has remained so, especially for rural dwellers. So, are we losing water on Earth, or are we just wasting water? On Good Morning Nigeria this Friday, we seek how to manage our water resources for sustainable development. I am Claire Adelabu Abdulrazak. Thank you for joining us as always.
All right, our conversation today is prompted by the call for action by the United Nations on its annual World Water Day celebration on March the 22nd. Organizations and peoples of the world are encouraged to celebrate the value of water, raise awareness of the global water crisis, and notch support to accelerate process of SDG 6, water and sanitation for all, by the year 2030. My name is Quaran. Good Morning Nigeria is broadcast on the network service of the NTA. And
all right, coming up next will be the newspaper review. Don't go away.
All right, we now have Bayo Atoyebi, our reviewer. Bayo, it's good to have you today again, as always.
Thank you, Kiria.
You're welcome.
Good morning, Claire.
It's Friday.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Bayo, it's Friday. Let's quickly begin with the Daily Trust. And the lead story, AU Nigeria back WHO on use of AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine. Comes with 3 riders. FG expects 16 million more doses in weeks. Vaccine in all states except Kogi, and Kanu dismisses vaccine boycott. And the traffic gridlock along Gwagwalada Abuja Lokoja Road, that was yesterday. I hope it's cleared by now. Now, out of school children rise by 3 million in 3 months. Details of that on page 4. Just a little below the nameplate, Aisha Buhari, that's First Lady of Nigeria, returns to Nigeria after 6 months in Dubai. It's on page 4. Gunmen kill 4 naval officers, 3 policemen in Anambra. And federal government launches $890 million health grant. Details of that on page 46. Kyria.
All right, you're done. All right. Now, to the Punch newspaper. The Punch, above the nameplate of Punch, CBN defends Naira with $5.62 billion in 3 months. That's on page 22. Throwing 2023 presidency open, despicable, unconscionable, Ohaneze tells PDP. That's on page 7. Throwing 2023 presidency open, despicable, unconscionable, Ohaneze tells PDP. At last, Aisha Buhari returns after 6 months in Dubai. It's on page 7. Now, the lead story here this morning on Punch newspaper, doctors threaten strike, say federal government not paying dead members' insurance. Families of our members killed by COVID-19 received nothing. That's according to the association. We lost 17 of our members to COVID-19. 1,600 infected, say resident doctors. Doctors plan indefinite strike action March 31st. Kano vaccination suffers setback. Find out all of that on page 2. Now, bandits kill policemen, abduct 3 in Kaduna. On page 8, gunmen kill 4 naval men, 3 policemen in Anambra State. It's on pages 4 and 5. Now, how Lamido received 1.35 billion kickbacks into personal accounts, as according to EFCC. That's on page 8. How Lamido received 1.35 billion kickbacks into personal accounts. All right, now 6 Super Tucano jets arrived July, says presidency. Super Tucano jets. It's on page 9. Now, Niger pastor abducted. Family claims 60 million naira demand made. That's on page 5. Kano cleric ban mosque closure, unconstitutional, unjust. Council of Ulamas. Details on page 9. Bayo.
Thank you, Kiran. Well, talking about the Tucano aircrafts, 12 of them were ordered, 6 will be available in July, and you will recall that it was ordered in 2018. In fact, permission was granted for some sums of money to be taken from the excess crude account for which the aircrafts are to be acquired. 14 Nigerian pilots have been in training in Georgia to get very familiar with the aircraft. It may be recalled that state governor once questioned that where are the aircraft after they have given $1 billion for the acquisition of the aircraft. Obviously, either the governor was not aware that aircraft, such war aircrafts, are not picked from showroom. They have to be manufactured by specification after the contracts have been signed. So apparently was playing up to the political gallery. But the information now, which was given by the Special Assistant to the President, Garba Shehu, is that the 6 will be here in July, and shortly after that, they will be here. And in consonance with that, the Chief of Air Staff also paid a maiden operational visit to Kaduna yesterday. At a courtesy call to Governor Nasir El-Rufai, the Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Isiaka Amao, said that Mr. President has ordered that the military should ensure that people can freely go to the farms during the rainy season. And he gave order, the message to bandits: we are coming after you. The Army, the Navy, and other security agencies are going to flush you all out of the country. Meanwhile, bandits struck at Ungwamu Waziri in Chuku local government area of Kaduna yesterday. They fears that a policeman and inspector was killed. 3 persons were adopted. In fact, when the bandits arrived in the area, there was community alarm, and people were asked to switch off their generating set. But soon, they had gunshots. At the end of it, among the 3 that were abducted were 2 students of the Kaduna State University who were abducted from their out-of-campus accommodation. Meanwhile, there are concerns about COVID-19. Today, we have 135 new cases in 15 states of the Federation. Lagos, which had the highest, had 41, Imo 20, so the numbers are receding. The total so far, 161,409. Unfortunately, 2 days ago, we had 9 deaths. No death was reported yesterday. So far, the total deaths we have had is 2,027. We have 12,492 of our compatriots in treatment in hospital. Department of Petroleum Resources in Abuja zone has sealed off 11 filling stations. What is their offense? They were found to be dispensing petrol above the approved price. Some of them have manipulated their meters so that they were under dispensing, and others were diverting the community. Also in Benin, 6 stations have been closed. Engineer Obi Ogio, who is the controller in charge of Benin, says they were selling petrol above the 162 and 165 belts. Some were selling as high as 175. The stations that were closed are those along Airport Road, Apapava, and Sapowa Road in Benin. Meanwhile, oil benchmark for Brent crude on Thursday evening by 7:30 fell by 6.21%, losing about $4.22. It is now sold at $63.78. The implication is that when the oil price drops, the pump price will concomitantly drop.
Well,
we always welcome that too, but when the oil price goes up, then we raise alarm that, they are increasing pump price again.
Let's take on this story on the doctors threatening strike.
Yes.
Saying that the families of our members killed by COVID-19 received nothing. And again that they lost 17 members to COVID-19 and 1,600 infected. Should there have been any kind of a compensation, for doctors who died of COVID-19? Was there anything, is there a policy, or was there any time the Minister of Health came up with the policy of making a payment to COVID-19 victims, especially medical personnel?
Well, when COVID-19 came, there were concessions that were made that there's what they call allowances that we were paying them was about 5 naira. It was found to be very low, and that was increased. And also there was assurances that insurance would be provided because doctors were frontline workers facing the COVID-19.
But we always said on this program,
yes,
that strike is really not, the best solution to all of this. There's still room for negotiations, and you must give it to this government. They've done quite a lot for doctors, especially within this COVID pandemic. But I just like to keep you on hold. You know, I don't want us to end this session without looking at the editorial.
Yes.
2 for Grammy. It's the editorial on The Nation, and it's talking about, of course, 2 young Nigerians who have made us proud, who have put Nigerian music on the world stage. The one Grammy talking about Damini Ebunluwa Ogulu, aka Burna Boy, and Ayodeji Ibrahim Balogun, also known as Wizkid. Yes. Both won Grammy Awards, world's top accolade for musicians. But this editorial is saying that, look, while we acknowledge that these boys have put us, on this stage, Nigerian music has been alive for a long time. But I will also remember, it is not foreign awards that validate our cultures, but our own aesthetic evaluation. We congratulate the musical ambassadors.
Yes. What you're saying in effect is that, well, Nigerian music has been very pronounced and has been global for a long time ago. But they're emphasizing that the advent of Black Lives Matters is now bringing into limelight the discrimination that was brought to bear upon talents that were non-white. And therefore, with this advent, it shows that if fairness is allowed to operate, then our talents will blossom across the world. Congratulations to the two.
Honestly, congratulations.
One was a solo award, that of Burna Boy. The other was a collaboration with Beyonce. That is that of the Wizkid.
All right. On a very good, happy note, we'd like to end our newspaper review this week. Bayo, thank you.
Thank you, too.
It's a Friday. Have a very pleasant weekend. We'll see you on Monday, by God's grace.
Thank you.
This is Good Morning Nigeria. Our conversation today is centered on water. How do you value water? What is the social or cultural perspective to water? And our prompt today is the World Water Day coming up on Monday. We'll be right back.
Before we begin our conversation on sustainable water management, let's take this report by Victor Azu.
Nigeria comes across as rich in water resources, and the fact that several of its 36 states are named after rivers says a lot in the affirmative. In addition to surface water found in nearly every part of the country, there's also plenty stored underground. The country has 215 cubic kilometers a year of available surface water, a lot higher than many African countries, particularly those in the southern and northern regions of the continent. South Africa, for example, has about 49 cubic kilometers a year. This would suggest that Nigerians have plenty of water to use, but it is not the case. In fact, only 19% of Nigeria's population has access to safe drinking water. Although 67% of people have basic water supply, access is uneven. In cities, 82% of people have a basic supply. In rural areas, only 54% do. The theme for this year's World Water Day, Valuing Water, therefore speaks to Nigeria's situation as it focuses on issues beyond pricing concerns to include the environmental, social, and cultural value people place on water. This is more so as sector analysts suggest Nigeria suffers from economic water scarcity, the inability to properly manage, use, and protect water resources for socio-economic development and environmental sustainability. How might Nigeria's abundant water resources be made to serve its people? How might the poor regulatory, legal, and institutional frameworks be strengthened for this purpose? Add this to how to keep Nigeria's waters free from pollution, and you get a sense of some of the issues that guests on Good Morning Nigeria will be addressing shortly.
That was Victor as giving us a background perspective for us to begin our conversation on sustainable water management. Victor, thank you for that package. We have all our guests ready for our conversation. So let me begin the introductions with the Honorable Minister of Water Resources. So he's right here with us, Engineer Suleiman Adamu. Honorable Minister, thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning. Morning, Nigerians.
Also seated is a familiar face, Engineer Kashim Ali, is Board Chairman, Federal Capital Territory Water Board. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us.
Good morning.
And joining us from Lagos via Zoom is Adebayo Alao. Adebayo Alao is the head of Wash Water Aid Nigeria. Thank you for joining us this morning. Zoom from Ilori, capital of Kwara State, we have Engineer Shehu Umar. Engineer Shehu Umar is the acting general manager, Kwara State Water Corporation, Ilori. Good morning and welcome to our program. Well, we just hope that the audio is through so that we don't get stuck along the line. Gentlemen, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Minister of Water Resources, you have been on top of this game for a long time now. I've been privileged to attend some of your functions, where you have deliberately made attempts to tell Nigerians what it requires to be on top of water resources management in this country. And today here we are on a topic of this nature. Looking at water, the value of water, water accessibility in Nigeria. What is your general assessment of access to water in Nigeria?
Well, I think we're making progress thanks to at least the tough requirements of Sustainable Development Goals which Nigeria has subscribed to, but the progress is very slow. I'm very glad that the theme for the World Water Week this year is valuing water. I've been making the point that it seems we're paying a lip service to water in this country. We don't seem to appreciate the importance. Even with the COVID pandemic, whose major fight, centers around provision of adequate water supply, you still see, and despite all the efforts we'll be making to get the subnational level at states and local governments to prioritize water, I think we're still a long way. But I hope that the World Water Week is also, in addition to all the efforts that we've been making in the past, is an eye-opener, and it's also a trigger that will enable states and cities and other municipal water supply systems to be developed, and for all the necessary investment to be made. We've been making noise over the last 5 years on the need for states to make more investment in water. The federal government cannot be the one doing all this. The water is on the concurrent list, but the bulk of the provision of water, the responsibility lies with the states and the local governments for rural water schemes. But unfortunately, the investment is just not there. There's not enough investment. And that is why it's such a big shame that I keep saying in this country, there is not a single city in this country that can boast of 100% access to water supply 24 hours a day.
All right. It's good, Honorable Minister, that we are making progress in terms of access. But again, it will depend on, or what will be of utmost concern to us is the pace of progress. And like you said, it would appear again, the pace of progress will, be determined by the value we accord water.
Absolutely.
So does it mean that even at that level, at the different tiers, of government, there is no value for water?
Well, honestly, like I said earlier, we're paying lip service to water. Probably because we think water falls from the sky, that there's a lot of abundant water during the rainy season, and we have lots of rivers, and we think that is all there is to it. But people tend to forget that even to harness the water, to get it into our taps or into our pots, it requires a lot of investment in terms of, purifying the water and so on and so forth. And then there are these other issues, cultural issues, issues like open defecation, where people are even messing up the raw water itself. Our sources are not well protected, and people just don't seem to care. We seem to have a lot of cultural issues associated with this. And then we have structural problems. Even where we have municipal schemes, I'm sure my friend Kashi will tell you how challenging it is to run a water board. and especially at state level. Over the years, through the National Urban Sector Water Reform Program, for example, we have tried at federal level through intervention by the World Bank to get states to corporatize their water boards so that they can be self-sustaining. They can do cost recovery and be able to manage themselves. But some states are still clinging to the old ways of doing things, and therefore you find out that one of the highest casualties in government service are GMs of water boards.
So, let's speak more to, the theme for, this year's water celebration, which is valuing water. And I'm going to dwell a lot of that, and that's because of what I see, what we all see, across, in different parts of the country. Even right here in the city of Abuja, you go, Engineer Kashimali, you'll agree with me. You see water gushing from broken pipes, and everybody is just passing by. Nobody is doing anything. Do we really have regards? Do we place premium on water?
Unfortunately, we do not. In fact, I had an experience this morning. I walk after Subui, I normally walk, and I walk with some people. So each time we're walking like that and I see a broken pipe around where I'm walking, I normally go to such as to knock. I say, you have a problem with you. Can you call the water board or at least lock it? I do that. So everybody on my route, they know that if you have a problem, you must solve it. Otherwise, I'll call them myself and we'll lock your water. So this morning, we're walking and there's a gentleman who brought jerry cans to a friend's house to fetch water. Opposite him, somebody else was wasting water washing his car. And I said, look at this, look at the life. This person needs this water for sustenance. He needs it for his family. This one is wasting it. And I said, can you people see why I stopped to... It appears that I'm disturbing them, but this is why I do that. Some people don't even have water. You have, and you are wasting it. So certainly we do not value it. And like one minister said, look, even in Abuja, we're beginning to experience disrespect for nature. Our catchment area for the Lower Osman Dam used to be very well protected, such that raw water was of very good quality. Today, there's encroachment. In fact, there's even an infantry now, or people thinking that the land bordering the water should be inhabited with or without authority. So people went and carved plots for themselves within our own premises. Unfortunately, people didn't see them early until somebody raised an alarm. And luckily, the minister was very upset when he heard about it and personally instructed the demolition of 2 structures. Yesterday, another patriotic Nigerian sent me a text, a very senior citizen really, to say that there's a problem again. People are beginning to even clear land around that place to start farming. And I had to send to the head of water, better go there and see so that we can take action immediately. So that is even at that level. But
why do people waste water? Even in our homes. Even in our homes, when we do our domestic, cooking, washing of clothes, utensils and all that, we tend to waste a lot of water.
People waste water
yes.
where water is available. But if you have an experience where water is not available, you begin to appreciate the value of water. I've lived in areas, where there's lack of water. I've visited persons in this Abuja, for instance, where there's lack of water. They manage it. In fact, they actually depend on all these young Meruas,
yes.
So in that case, they measure water. We want to take your bath or something, you measure water, right? So, but the point you're making,
yes, it's a general attitude, and I'm asking engineer, yes,
in
so
Nigeria,
is it out of ignorance?
No, it's a poverty syndrome that we have in Nigeria. It's not only with water. It's just that again we are discussing water now. The attitude is that you are in a place of want. The moment you leave that stage, you think you should now become extravagant. If you see the behavior of some people, even in terms of even wasting public resources, any type of resources that comes your way, it is a poverty syndrome. Unfortunately, this is it. But with water, again, water is more compounded because like you say, water comes from all sources. There's somebody who says, I'm from a riverine place. But the raw water that your living environment is bound in, is not safe for you to drink.
Okay.
So you can't. So what
right.
we are talking about, the volume of water, the water that is potable. So that is what we are even saying. But people they don't see any difference between raw water and treated water in the attitude.
All right. In the course of the program, we'll actually delve into all that. And again, because water is on the concurrent list, as the minister pointed out, we should be able to understand whether there is a synergy between the federal water policy and that of the state policy. But now let's go to Adeboye Alao in Lagos, head of Wash Water Aid Nigeria. Well, Lagos is a mega city with a mega population. We know that in the past couple of years, we've had governors in Lagos who performed very well in terms of a provision of amenities and the infrastructure. But we don't know how much that has done. They have done with provision of water. Knowing Lagos as it is not a place where access to water is easy. But lead us into what the situation is now with respect to access to water in Lagos.
Thank you very much. Good morning once again. Let me use, first of all, this opportunity to congratulate the Honorable Minister on this occasion of World Water Day. I want to also, commend the effort of the Honorable Minister in the sector, the passion that he has brought into the water sector, and the enthusiasm that is showing and demonstrating at the federal level for Nigeria to have access to clean water by the year 2030. That is a commendable effort. I must say that, number one, this is about the first time we are having this high-level political commitment, to improving water supply in Nigeria. However, as the Honorable Commissioner has noted, the responsibility for provision of water to the citizens lies in the hands of the state. And it is at the state level that services should be delivered and be patronized and enjoyed by the people. The question we ask is, to what extent is states are states, responding to the kind of the passion that we have at the national level? As Water Aid, since the launch of the National Action Plan for Revitalization of the Wash Sector in Nigeria, we have partnered with both the federal government and a number of states to support them in providing an enabling environment for water governance, because that's the first step. Your governance structure needs to be well structured, needs to be well laid out. And we support states, in the area of having a water policy. We realize that many of these states do not even have a policy for water. And when you do not have a policy for water, you begin to wonder, where is the direction that you are going? So we supported states, to first of all have a policy on water, and having the water policy, you'll be able to develop some other strategic documents that will enable you to increase access to water within your states. And following on that, we'll come with technical support that will enable you to plan the sector more effectively. Because without the plan, you will not even know, which area is lacking in supply, which aspect of your, of your supply chain that is, that is lacking in efficiency and effectiveness. Now, without all these plans, it becomes very difficult for even development partners to come to support. So what we do is to encourage states, to have these strategic documents that they'll be able to use as an avenue or as a tool, to seek support from development partners. And the National Action Plan for Wash Revitalization in the country had made provision for what is referred to as the National Wash Fund, for states to be able to access this fund. But there are criteria, for states to be able, before they can access this fund. Many of our states have not been able to meet that criteria. So part of the things that we do at Water Aid is to work with the states, build their capacity to be able to come up with that, meet that criteria, which the federal government is asking of. And by then, you'll be able to, have access to this fund, and you'll be able to improve on your services. So the sector has a lot of, challenges at the state level, at the local government level, before we even come down to the community level. At the community level, we face the challenge of operation and maintenance. The schemes are there, the water schemes are there, and the belief of the people is that the government has given us this. So if it spoils, it's government's responsibility to come and repair. It is not so. So we work with communities to build models for them to be able to operate and maintain, these facilities once it is provided. At the local government level, there is a unit that is called the WASH unit, Water Supply and Sanitation and Hygiene units. Do they have the capacity to be able to, interface between them and the, and communities? So we build capacity at that level too, for them to be able to do that. And of course, at the state level, there are many strategic documents that they're supposed to put in place. There are many plannings that are supposed to be in place so that there will be effective governance of the water sector at the state. These are the things that we support to, to do at that level. Thank you.
Lagos, what's the situation in Lagos where you live? Access to water by people in Lagos. May we have an idea? All the points you marshaled out, they will tend to reflect on the plan, the strategic plans for access to water. But in Lagos, do people have access to water? Local government areas, as pointed out, and the local communities?
Let me say, make something a bit clear. Actually, my presence in Lagos here, it's because we have a partnership that is that have just been signed. We've just signed a memorandum of understanding with the Lagos State Water Regulatory Commission, and that's why really I'm still here. And part of the things that we are doing with them is building of capacity, because like I said, capacity is actually lacking. So we are supporting the Lagos State Water Regulatory Commission to look at the entire wash structure of Lagos State. The entire sector of Lagos State, right at the state, the local government, and up to community level. Where do we have the challenges of capacity? Because one of the things that is missing there is capacity to deliver on services is lacking. But then, even where capacity is lacking, we still have the challenge of political will, for the government to be able to, take the bull by the horn and say we are ready to do this. So we are just trying to, to see that they have everything in place. As per whether, people in Lagos have access to water or not, I will not be able to say that. Number one, I'm not actually resident in Lagos. I only came for this purpose in Lagos. But the people at the utility, the Lagos State Water Corporation, I believe also that they have been trying their best. But like I said earlier, there are a lot of challenges for urban water supply. The issue of taking raw water for treatment before you go to supply using the pipelines. The pipelines are dilapidated, they are old. The treatment plants are also old and everything. So you see that with all of these challenges, access to water will begin to decrease because your service area will begin to reduce because the equipment that you have can no longer carry the population that is supposed to serve. I'm sure that most of these utilities were built way back in the 70s and early 80s. And by now, there's supposed to have been a total overhaul, of the treatment plants, of the pipeline networks and all of that. And it's still the same pipeline that have been laid some several 30, 40 years ago that are still being used. Now, the population of Lagos State, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, is not the same that we have today. And yet we are coping with the same level of equipment that we had at that time. So there's no way that we are...
We've lost connection there. It does happen with all these internet connectivity. We do hope to restore connection with Debayo Alao, head of WASH Water Aid in Nigeria, joining us from Lagos. We will also be linking up with our guest in Ilorin, who is also joining us via Zoom. But let me come back to the Honorable Minister here. The United Nations is predicting global water scarcity by 2050. And that's if we do not get water management approaches right. And the head WASH is talking about no water policy at the state level and other levels of government. But I want us to let the viewer have an understanding of the burden of water scarcity, water crisis. The impression is that we've talked about raw water, fresh water, abundance of water. Nigeria is blessed with, huge water resources. So there's so much water for us. So why are we talking about crisis?
Well, climate change is number one. It's a major factor. We can see, for instance, right at the northeast corner of this country, how the Lake Chad has shrunk before our very eyes in our generation from 25,000 square kilometers to, at one time, just barely 10%, 2,500 square kilometers. So, and that's real. And you can see, all this issue, the security situation in the northeast has clearly been linked with the lots of opportunities arising from the shrinkage of the Lake Chad. Farmers and the fishermen and everything have lost opportunities. There's no economic hope for people, and so on and so forth. So that is one. Even where we have abundant water, we still also have the crisis of flood because of climate change and so on and so forth. But we're lucky, we're a blessed country. Nigeria is not a water-scarce country, but it's what we call an economically water-scarce country, because we've not been able to harness the water resource to be able to fairly distribute and to make the best use of it.
So that's the challenge we face.
That's the major challenge we have in the country. But we also have, because if you look at the country, we have various vegetations. If you go to the Sahelian region, there are quite a number. There are people that have migrated. If you go to Yobe, for instance, there are the towns that have been overrun by sand dunes and so on. In the northeast, aquifers are much deeper now than they used to be, so you have to drill deeper to be able to get water. So the challenges are facing us. But what is important is we have a plan, we have a response to these things. And because we don't value water, we are not paying attention to this kind of thing. We don't monitor groundwater. Where in 1995, when the first Water Resources Master Plan was done with the support of Japan International Cooperation Agency, only 5% of our groundwater resource was being exploited. So we had abundant groundwater resource. But when I hear and I see that you see estates in this, even in Abuja and elsewhere, everybody is drilling, hundreds of thousands of boreholes every year, you know that we have a problem, So we're not looking at when Australia, for instance, took a deliberate attempt, made a deliberate effort to recharge its groundwater in certain areas. There are certain provinces, because they'd exploited the groundwater for several years for agriculture. They now diverted a river and they're perpetually recharging the groundwater. We're exploiting this groundwater without thinking, And even in places where we have cities that have rivers, there for them to just tap the water, there's abundant raw water for them, just for them to invest, build the treatment plants, and so on and so forth, and build the distribution network. One mayor in New York, when he was leaving office, the last act he did was to sign off a 100-year plan for the water supply of New York. Most of our states don't even have a 5-year plan. All they do, they react. Okay, there is no water, they drill a borehole. We can't sustain this kind of things. So we need to look deeper. And that is why at federal level, we have created all the policies, all the programs, to be able to address this. And I'm glad the gentleman that was speaking from Lagos mentioned, now one of our conditions is there's not going to be any federal intervention or multilateral intervention for any state if you don't have a plan. If you don't have a water resources or water supply master plan, you can't get anything. But then also, we do not attach economic value to water. We talked about wastage and so on. People don't even pay for even when they have supply, including all the big people. You bring them water bill, they don't want to pay. Everybody thinks it's free. Everybody wants a free ride. We can't run a country like this. If you go to Cameroon, you see every house has a tap. But they have a special lock. The man will lock his tap because he knows he has to pay for the water. If he doesn't pay, he gets disconnected.
Some running meters.
Yes, and some are running meters and so on. Some of us, we come, we manipulate the meters and so on and so forth. We have a serious attitude in this country. Corruption is so pervasive. Indiscipline is so pervasive. And we don't appreciate some of the things that we get. That is why in the 70s, 60s, and 70s, we had schemes, and they are the same schemes that are running now at 30, 35%. And no further investment has been made in other states for them to be able. And when we say water is organic, every year your population is rising. You cannot continue to use the same facilities that were providing water 40 years ago to say that you're providing water today. It's not going to work. Yeah. It's something that has to be a plan and has to be continuously, implemented.
Exactly. Just as rightly pointed out, Minister, that we have attitude. It's just not on the masses themselves alone, but even people in government, people in positions of authority, because that is why a state will be operating with pipes laid over 40 years ago. And this is in almost every state of this federation. And I mean, as rightly pointed out, it's an attitude, which ought to change before we get into a serious water crisis, as the UN is predicting. Now, let's go to Ilorin, where we have Engineer Shehu Umar. Engineer Shehu Umar, we are the Acting General Manager of Quaran State Water Corporation in Ilorin. We have raised a number of issues here that pointed to the fact that state governments most times do not adhere to policies of federal government with respect to provision of water. Some plans, strategic plans by the federal government are not keyed into by some state governments, thereby making it difficult or even impossible for your people to have access to water. Let us know what obtains in Ilorin. Ilorin is it's quite an old city, if you ask me, and I don't know whether Ilorin is also suffering this issue of having pipes that have been laid 40 years ago, and they're still expecting that to provide service to the population of such a city. So what's your thought?
Good morning, everyone, once again. Actually, the audio is really very bad, but at the same time, I can tell you what we're doing in Quaran State so far in terms of access to water. But before then, I want to congratulate all of us, from the Honorable Minister, Engineer Adamu Suleiman, on the World Water Day, and every other persons on the program. In most of the programs from the federal government has been highlighted by Mr. Adebayo Alao and the minister, Honorable Minister, had been something that we've been trying as much as possible to key in, because most of this thing will go from the urban to the rural aspect, rural areas of every state. Talking about the master plan, we've started that. Quaran has been actually backward in terms of water, but when this administration, the administration of Malam Abdurrahman Abrazak came in, he was so passionate about water. 30 days into his coming into the administration, he visited all the infrastructure and facility, water sector infrastructure and facilities, whereby he had to put up a kind of a committee in place where we have to put up a lot of plans to make sure that accessibility to water is very, very key within the states. And going forward, what we did was to, first of all, put a structure in place, because before now there had not been a very, very good structure. We made sure that accessibility to water started rolling in as before the 100 days. And what we did was to ensure that all the equipment and the infrastructure that had been laid bare for a long time, up to 5 years back, we need to start putting it back stage by stages. But for now, I can tell you authoritatively that water supply, accessibility of water supply within Ilorin metropolis and in the state had gone more than 50%, and we are trying as much as possible to ensure that work in progress continues to go. By the time we key into what we call the WASH activities from the federal government, in which most of these things were being checked, there are criteria, there are eligibility criteria for us to be able to do all these things, as the Mr. Adibaya had just said. But what we did in our own case was that the master plan is being put in place right now. The wash activity, all the eligibility criteria, we've tried as much as possible to, ensure that all these things are being followed. And we want to try as much as possible to meet up all these eligibility criteria so that we can assess some of this funds. Like the Honorable Minister said, we can't assess some of these things if if we don't have our policies in place, we don't have all the criteria, eligibility criteria being met. And that is what we are doing. In fact, when we went to the National Council on Water the last time in Abuja, these are most of the things we have to talk around all the stakeholders. But for now, in Quaran State, I can assure you, water is everywhere. But there are challenges, which is what everybody has been saying here. We have people that want to just take the water without paying, one. Two, the wastage of water is a key thing. People will see water going everywhere, and they don't want to get in touch with us. So what we did was to try as much as possible to now said, okay, we have to do advocacy, go to the media to give out all our numbers, customer services numbers, so that everybody that had to see whatever is happening to our pipeline, leakages all over the place, had to call us. But another great challenge that we have is that our pipelines are in every neighborhood, but people still want borehole. They want to dig borehole. If they send letter to the Honorable, His Excellency, people will look out for borehole. By the time we go to the site, we see our pipe passing through there. But why do they really want borehole? It's because they know the pipeline is in their front, in their neighborhood, but they don't want to tap it because they don't want to pay. So these are the challenges. But accessibility to water in Quaran State had been improved tremendously compared to the past. So, but right now, going forward, what we are trying to do again is to do more advocacy, let people understand. One of the things that we are doing in Quaran State is one of the lowest rates that we have in terms of water bill. But people still want us to come down to that. We have issues with the retirees. The retirees will tell you, we are retired, we cannot pay such an amount. And how much do we take? For domestic, we have only 2,000. That is for low density area. For high density area, we have 2,500. So going forward, these are the challenges, but we thank God, we are ensuring this sustainability of water supply. As long as we have water supply within our pipes, we know we have accessibility of water to the populace. And that is what we are doing currently, and is an ongoing thing. And we have to give kudos to His Excellency, Madam Abraman Abdrazak. He has met the minister on issue of water in Quaran State, and we are really making sure that all the things that are required in terms of the wash activity, the P-wash, we are following it so that we can be able to achieve a lot at the rural area as well as the urban area. Thank you.
Engineer Umar, thank you very much, and I'm very glad that you admitted that Quaran State, has been backward in terms of provision of water. But I'm a bit worried whether it's the issue of payment or actually that there's no water, the taps are not running. But let me ask you. Residents of Okeakpomu, for instance, and indeed in major parts of Ilorin West, still buy water. They still buy water, and I'm telling you authoritatively because I come from Okeakpomu. So what is the current situation right now? Has that changed?
Yes, Okeakpomu in Ilorin Metropolis, within Ilorin Metropolis, had been continuously being supplied water. Actually, there was a time that we had a road construction there. We have to resurface the road there, but we had already relayed all the pipelines. And what we did was to ensure that we provide standpipe so that all this standpipe, people can access water there. What we do, anywhere we do new extension to neighborhoods, the new neighborhood and it requires extension, we do standpipe for them so that we can be able to show them water is here. So people can be able to share. I mean, people can be able to fetch water. Because if you don't do that, like I said initially, what they will do is they will never pick the water. So, but in order to ensure that water is there, we put a standpipe there. So in Okiakomu, in Ilorin Metropolis, there is water there.
Claire, he said that in the area where you come from, that there's water there.
Well, I don't know. It's not hard to verify.
I don't know the last time you traveled to that community, you know, so you better get a record straight. He's been authoritative. I don't know. We are colleagues, right? But he's been authoritative in this matter now. All right, gentlemen. Now, what is the role of dams in water management? I know that countries like Sweden, which is a little over 9 million people, has over 1,000 functional dams in that country. And of course, Sweden has one of the best water system globally, right? And we have dams in this country. Kashim, do we have enough functional dams in this country? If yes, what should be the contribution of dams? Because when you talk about water management, you also talk about the impoundment of in dams to be able to also provide some level of assistance with respect to water management.
Thank you, Kirian. We have too many idle dams in Nigeria. And they are not even far away from us, even from Abuja. If you travel down to Kogi, you see an idle dam there. Go to Ondo, go to so many places. I think, again, it takes us to this discussion, valuing water. Because if you value water, you will now provide people with water. You know, and you see, this issue of, and I'm not trying to criticize my brother from Ilori, what I try to do, and I call my colleagues to do in water supplies, let's take criticisms fairly. Let's use certain things as indicators. Honorable Minister mentioned the fact that even in Abuja, we're beginning to drill boreholes. Nobody will go and invest his money. A borehole costs about $1 million plus. If I cannot pay 5,000 naira for municipal water supply, where will I get the money to drill borehole? Nobody will drill a borehole if he has water in his tap. We must accept that. It's only where somebody is extravagant, maybe he's not using his own money to drill, that he could do that. Even that, it makes no sense anyway.
Because drilling is expensive.
It is. Absolutely. So why will you tell me that I'm drilling borehole when there's... So we use in Abuja, what I use, way back when I was a director of the water board, I used Meroa as indicator. I never drove them from the street. Anywhere I see a constitution, I know there's no water there. We'll now go and investigate why is there no water. Sometimes somebody has cut off their water out of vindictiveness. Maybe somebody didn't give him bribe on that road and you cut it. So they'll resort to until we connect. Other places, we found that some places were high grounds and they needed pumps. We did all those things. Okay. So we should use those as good. There are dams that have been provided by the Federal Ministry of Water Resources. Even in Abuja here, our own dam here, the one we Abuja had, which is the Lower Osman Dam, with a capacity of 100 million cubic meters of water, was projected to be not to meet the demands of Abuja at a particular time. It was proposed to have another dam in Gurara, but Gurara Dam, but in Kaduna State. There's no way a FCT can go and do any activity in Kaduna State. So Federal Ministry of Water Resources intervened and did that dam, which has a capacity of 9 times, almost 10 times the size of our own, 80 million cubic meters per hour, from where we get water to augment what we have in the system here. That is a functional dam. They are also planning to take part of the water to generate electricity for Kaduna State as a benefit for them. Then there's a large portion of land that's being used for irrigation between Kaduna and Abuja. That is how to use a dam. how many places do you have this type of thing happening in Nigeria? And there's no state in Nigeria that is not covered with at least a dam. So why is there no, the dams that have been done, so even there are some states where the government have gone extra mile to provide treatment plants. So all you need to do is operate the treatment plant, extend water from your treatment plant to your communities. Some state governments will not do that. So see, answering your question simplicity, there are so many idle dams, but we have many dams in Nigeria, but many of them are idle.
You know, Engineer Kashimale, like the minister said, our problem with water is basically with access. And access to those who live in the rural areas, because of the 19%, according to statistics, of Nigerians, of our population, you understand, who have access to water, safe water, majority of them live in cities. The larger population are in rural areas. So how do we, and UN is saying, look, this is a problem of approach. This is a problem of how you manage, the waters. So how have we been managing our waters?
Thank you.
Yes, because in 2018, there was an international, during the 2018 International Water Day, the UN advised that nations move away from the silo approach where you dealt with each of the waters separately and then there's no integration. Are we still doing that, or are we dealing with our water management independently?
Again, this team forcing, not valuing water. Today in Nigeria, I know of 2 states that are giving seriousness to water governance system, proper water governance, Lagos State and Kaduna State. Now, because we don't also value water, we think anybody can run a water supply system. So you have, you say, okay, I say we need a water board. You create a water board. You appoint anybody, no matter how qualified or not, as a GM. Certainly because he's not qualified, after a few months, he say he wants water for diesel, money for diesel. You fire him, that is disturbing you. Money, you fire him. He comes for chlorine, you fire. That's why the turnover of GMs is so high, because there's not a clear understanding of what, if there's a proper water government. I'll give you an example. Let's paint a scenario. You have a state government, you have a water supply agency. Grant them autonomy and monitor them. As they collect revenue from selling treated water, they do investment with that water, There's a way you can go to the rural areas and get them to pay for their water. There's a program, and Suleiman Ademu was at the forefront. In fact, he was the promoter of that project. They did under the PTF, where even boreholes were provided for small communities that were not about 200 people. But before the boreholes were drilled, you have a meeting with the community to say, we must form a water users association.
So the people were involved?
The people were involved. So you do, in fact, the choice of the location of borehole, it was critical, because in some cultures, women do not pass certain places. So you must identify those places that a place women don't pass, you don't put your borehole there, because of those cultural issues. Because women are the people who mainly use water. So they have free access. Then if you want to collect money, who is the best person to collect money? Also, women who are better at managing such money, because you give a man tendencies for him to borrow somebody else, but the woman will say that this money is not mine, and nobody will talk. So they did that all over the country. If we had sustained that program, for instance, to say, okay, even communities, there will be accountability. They'll have, then we train people also. They train people, like if you have a mechanic or even bicycle repairer in the community, training on how to operate these pumps. Because these are simple pumps, to repair them and to do basic things. And they will pay, even if it's 10 naira for a bucket of water. That money will be there. You can use it to maintain it. That is, if you can do it at that level, what more of secondary and tertiary levels? Today, in most water boards, they collect the money and they pay into the treasury. The government collects it. When they want money to buy chlorine, it's a difficult thing.
Sure,
they want money to repair pipeline, it's a difficult thing. And you think that you can't manage water supply because the infrastructure, the appurtenances are buried. They are rotting. And the time they will collapse, you have no money to deal with them. So you must allow them autonomy. Any water board system that has no autonomy is planned to fail.
What
You mentioned, sorry,
What kind
Kiran.
of autonomy are you talking about?
Kiran, sorry.
Financial autonomy.
Okay. Okay, you mentioned Lagos and Kaduna, and I think this will do us a whole lot of good to know how they're approaching their own water management. Could you give us an insight?
What they did, and like you see, even Lagos has gone itself, have a water regulatory commission. But that is a commission that monitors the performance of the water in terms of technical viability, financial management, and quality of water. But beyond the system, they have Lagos State Water Corporation. It has its board. It has its management of competent people. They develop their programs. But now, Sherry has no water. What is the best way to give Sherry water? No, there's a nearby dam that we can take water from. We don't need to begin to do, because drilling borehole, for instance, even in Lagos, as suitable as it is, creates a problem of geological problems also. So you must also identify all those issues and deal with them. Once you have dealt with them, you now provide Sherry water in its most sustainable manner. And also you share with them your plans. And they pay money for water you are supplying them. And with that money, you can do reinvestment for expansion and for maintenance of their facilities.
Okay.
That's what they are doing. Kaduna is doing the same thing. Kaduna, you see, I can say that Kaduna is doing it because Kaduna is an offshoot of FCT in terms of all these concepts. This is what we're doing in FCT. Of course, that has also changed in FCT. We're going to change that. After this meeting, I'm going to have a meeting with the Honorable Minister of FCT with my board to take us back to where we were and where we should be. That we can run the board in a more organized way, not without interference from administrators who come and just intervene and do things without any structured program. So this is the way it is
All right.
done.
Okay, thank you. Before the break, we'll go on break. Let's allow Adebayo Alao come in once more. Adebayo Alao, you spoke so passionately about WASH program and all the strategies that are being put in place by WASH program, and which of us you want states to key into to ensure accessibility of water in various states across the country. Now, talking about WASH specifically, we are aware that the program has been piloted, in Kano and Ogun State. Well, I'm not very sure, but you will tell us better. How well has the program been able to address the issue of access to safe water in rural areas of those states?
Well, I must say that honestly, there is a lot of audio interference. I did not get you very well. But if I got your last line, it's like saying, how do we work to increase access to water? Is that what?
All right, Adebayo Alao, we will return to you in a short while. But right now, let's take a short break and see whether we can be in a position to address whatever the connectivity issue is there with your line. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Let's take a short break now. When we come back, the conversation surely continues. All right, thank you for staying with us up to this moment as we are still tackling the issue for this morning, and that's on water resources management in Nigeria. Let's turn to the Honorable Minister once more. Honorable Minister, I asked this question to Adebayo. It appears that you are the right person to take on the question on the issue of a P-wash, which has kicked off in Kano and Ogun State. So how has it performed so far with respect to ensuring safe water in rural areas of those states?
Well, thank you very much. First of all, P-WASH was initiated by this administration in 2016 as part of our response to our inability as a country to meet the Millennium Development Goals. So we introduced P-WASH, Partnership for Expanded Water Supply, Sanitation and Hygiene, towards ensuring that we meet the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. And the whole idea is to incentivize state governments to put in more money into the water supply, sanitation, and hygiene sector. So we started rightly with, like I said, with the Ogun and Kano states because they were the first two states to show interest and to sign off the protocols. And between those two states, we were able to rehabilitate or construct over 750 rural water schemes over a period of 18 months. Subsequently, we learned all the lessons from it, and we launched an expansion of the program in 2020. And now we are working with 10 states, 12 states actually. 10 states initially, and then 2 states came on board later, Kaduna and Gombe. They came belatedly, but by then we had already started the program. They said they will do their own program, and then in the next phase, federal government can put its own investment. What we are doing in P-WASH is that we take maybe 4 local governments, rural communities in 4 local governments, or the entire 4 local governments that are not urban as such. And then federal government will take the water requirements of 2 of those local governments, and the state will take 2. By the time the program is finished, what we envisage is that those local governments have 100% access, 100% rural access. If they have urban schemes and small towns, we are not going there. But the rural areas will give them 100% access. And right now, like I said, we have 12 states. So we have 4 local governments. Federal government is doing 2. The state government is doing 2. So by the time we finish this next phase, we'll have about 48 local governments that we can comfortably say that we have done 100%. The rural communities in those local governments have 100% access. And then it's going to continue. But that is not to say that it's going to be all along a federal, program. The whole idea is to incentivize the states, like I mentioned. And subsequently, maybe these things can go on autopilot. The state government can take it upon themselves. They will see the benefit of planning and, and all the things that were put in place to get to the entire program architecture. So they will learn from it and be able to see the benefit and hopefully continue from where we stop.
Okay, I'm going to direct my next question to Engineer Kashim Ali, and that's because you were a director in the FCT Water Board, and now you are chairman board, the FCT Water Board. First of all, I must really commend the FCT Water Board because some weeks back I heard on the radio that announcement, of course, warning residents of Kubwa of water, yes, for a few days. But why is it that some areas, even within the FCT, some satellite areas, okay, my producer is saying Lugbe, for instance, even in Kurudu, well, you know the areas I'm talking about, yes, don't have potable water. In those areas, you have a lot of the homes there, depend on boreholes.
You see, the interesting thing about Abuja, it's a creation of statute and everything is well regulated. If there have been a few of, deviation from plans in some cases because of pressures like this. But the program of water supply in Abuja is such that before water supply infrastructure comes along with other infrastructure. So anywhere we have district infrastructure, for instance, have roads, power, everything, there will be water line also. But anywhere you don't have that, there will be no water line. And water cannot be carried electronically. For electricity, it's easier. You can string, raise, and then temporary lines, and you can't do that with water. If you do it, by the time you cross somebody's plot, by the time he wants to come and do his you cut the water again and you start all over. So that is why it is like that. Lugbe, we have not got there. Like Kubwa, we have water there because there was the definite instruction then, a change of plan really, to take water from the Lower Osma Dam to Kubwa, to the airport, and to Gwagwalada. That's how Gwagwalada has water. But initially, the program was that all the satellite towns were to have independent water supply. Gwagwalada they had a well, and there was impoundment, and there was a treatment plant in Gwagwalada to supply Gwagwalada and the whole of the neighborhood. There was a well also constructed at the airport to supply the airport. There was another in Kubwa to supply Kubwa. But unfortunately, we have...
What of the MNK district?
Which one is that?
Maraba Nyanya Akaru district.
Maraba is not in FCT.
Eh? Some part of it is in FCT.
No,
what of Kurudu?
No,
what of Karu?
Nyanya has water.
Okay.
Nyanya Akaru, there's water in Nyanya Akaru. But where we don't have in the other places.
Maraba is Nasarawa State.
It's Nasarawa State.
What of Kurudu?
Kurudu, the Kurudu, it just evolved. It just evolved. Okay. And of course, you see, the area, and I'm sorry to say this, the area council authorities, they do a lot of things without even the knowledge of the central administration. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they do. Believe you me, that Kurudu, I only hear the name. Even though I'm in Abuja, all this, I only pass, because what we had there only were just this furniture people. But I know now it's a huge place. So we have to start planning for Kurudu. But we had plans for Nyanya and Karu, which was done. In fact, the water supply to Nyanya is one of the most expensive projects because we had a tunnel of about 1.8 kilometers.
Mm. All right, gentlemen, we have some tweets here. Let's see what Nigerians are also contributing to this conversation. Claire, I have the first one here from Kamal Ladan. Say, we don't know our national master plan in the water sector. It may be that every minister comes with his new plan. That is one way to continue going backward.
Okay, Daily Jack Solomon says, most cities in Nigeria are currently facing water management crisis due to poor planning, lack of adequate infrastructure, and insufficient funds, and a poor governance and regulatory framework. A logical and comprehensive policy framework that integrates sound principles of water management, environmental sustainability, and development will ameliorate this problem. Kiran, it seems Daily Jack Solomon is a water management expert, from the streets here.
From Festus Akimboewa, the huge problem we have with water scarcity, erosion, and floods across our country is mostly man-made. For Nigeria to make significant progress in providing access to excellent drinking water, better sanitation and drainage services, we must all treat water as a valuable resource. Yunusa
Idris, here in Zaria City, His Excellency broke the jinx of many decades. We are drinking clean and potable water, thanks to the Governor, World Bank, AFDB, and Ministry of Water Resources for their support. Water sustains lives.
Yeah, you didn't want to take care of Jeremiah Luther and Chris Simeon. Opa said the issue of easy access to clean water support is not something Nigeria as a country should be battling with right now. That's to tell you how underdeveloped and deplorable the state of effective water supply is in Nigeria. The solution is there. There are just lacks about it.
Okay, I'm just trying to say, Law Alpha C, water is an indispensable substance for the entirety of mankind. While governments in the Western world embark on water projects, Nigeria leaves provision of water to individuals.
Festus Akimboewa, water scarcity is a huge problem in Nigeria because of our growing population and climate change. It's upsetting that the majority of Nigerians depend on polluted rivers and beaches for drinking and bathing.
Okay, and Steve Bond says many have never seen a running public tap, testament to government failure over the years.
All right, we have this from Chris Simeon. With the rapid increase in population, federal and state governments should partner private sector to construct more dams and reservoirs so that water will be made available for us. They're saying that we have many idle dams in Nigeria that need to be reactivated for them to also make their own contribution. Claire, we need to return to Ilorin, to the commissioner,
acting
general manager rather of Quaran State Water Corporation. So you told us earlier on that the community that Claire talked about now has access to water. You also said that in some areas in Quaran State, that some persons prefer to have boreholes than to, have water from the pipe. And we have been thinking about that, because of the cost of doing a borehole. I mean, it's quite expensive, to go into borehole drilling. And we want to compare that to using water from the tap. But that is by the way. Now, what about rural communities in Quaran State? I know that Quaran runs a local government system presently. Is there any kind of synergy between the state and local government with respect to providing water for the teeming population of the rural people? Of course, you know that we have majority of the people residing in the rural areas. Well, all right, Engineer Shehu Umar, if you can hear me, indicate. Can you hear me now?
Hello.
Yes, you can hear us now. I'm asking you about the water situation in local government areas of Quaran State. What is the state government doing with respect to water provision for those teeming population of Quarans who are residing in the rural communities?
Yes, like I said initially, when this administration came in, what we did was to take stock of some of these rural areas. And
we seem to be having issues with that line, and back to the studio. Honorable Minister, your flagship program, National Action Plan for Water, Sanitation and Hygiene sector, was launched by President Buhari in 2018. Since then, what has been the impact of this action plan?
Well, again, you see, this is the issue we're mentioning about valuing water. Some states have keyed in. By now, would have expected that all the 36 states of the Federation will be on board, but there are still states that have been dragging their feet. They have not declared a state of emergency, as the President did for the country. They have not done that for their states. That WASH action plan was put in together by a team from my ministry in World Bank and other state stakeholders from the states, state commissioners and so on and so forth. And yet, we still have states that are dragging their feet. They have not keyed in at all. But for those that have done, and congratulate them, we're working together. And like I said, going forward, federal government interventions and maybe even the guarantees that the federal government provide through multilateral funding from World Bank and ADB. Right now, we are talking with the World Bank on a $700 million sustainable WASH program. The conditions for joining will be that they have to meet all those criteria. If they don't meet, then they lose. The other aspect of it is we're trying to get the component of the WASH fund, which we've incorporated into the draft water resources bill, and hopefully we'll get this bill sorted out this year. And if that is done, there's a window again for states to leverage for certain funding that they can use to invest in water, sanitation, and hygiene. So by and large, you see, it's an issue of political will. At federal level, it has been demonstrated at the highest level. The president himself launched the WASH Action Plan, declared a state of emergency on water, sanitation, and energy in November 2018, went ahead to even put an executive order, number 9, against open defecation. All the things that need to be done have been done at federal level. But getting the states to work at the pace that we want them to work has continued to be a challenge. But for those states that are working, we're ready to support them, we'll sustain them. And I'm glad to say that I'll concur with the AGM, acting AGM Quaran, that Quaran State has, there's a strong political will now with the governor. It's one example of state that is really, they understand and appreciate their problem. The statistics are very bad for them in terms of water supply, in terms of sanitation, and even open defecation. And the governor is not happy with it, and he's really up and doing. And like I said, there are lots of other governors, some state governments, our ODF campaign, our target is 2025. Some of them are looking at ending open defecation by 2023. We're seeing a lot of healthy competition among some of the states in that issue. But there are states, again, that are just not there.
Do we need to get that bill, that water resources bill? And I knew that when it was introduced some time ago, of course, it was not without some, criticisms. Do we need it to actually get these state governments to act?
Absolutely, it's in the best interest of the states for this bill to be passed, because the aspect of the WASH Fund is not. Look, we can operate with the existing 4 laws. I've always said that we have no problem working with the 4 existing acts that run the water sector. But where the whole idea has been just to consolidate them into one program. But there are key issues that we want to bring in, and these have a lot to do with valuing water. Number 1, we want to bring the concept of integrated water resources management fully to implement it. We're already implementing, but we want to really implement it such that every water resources development that we're doing, carries everybody along, all the stakeholders, and at the same time is done without degrading the land. So there's complete harmony between water resources management and land management. It's not about land acquisition. It's about management. It's about, managing the ecosystem. That is one. Number 2, we are trying to empower farmers, under the irrigation, component of water resources, to be able to maintain secondary and tertiary irrigation systems, to empower them to collect monies, to run, through water user associations. We want that also, statutorily recognized. 3, we want to introduce this WASH Fund. The law will provide for sources within the federation account and within the states where we can leverage, and even outside, where we can leverage funding. And then based on certain conditions, state governments can now draw from that fund. The federal government doesn't necessarily need it, but it's for the states. It's for the benefit of the states. And finally, we must understand that governments alone, whether federal, state, or local governments alone, cannot run water systems in this country. We cannot run it sustainably. We have to bring in the private sector, even if it is just to contract management, as states like Kaduna and Lagos are doing.
What should be the role of the private sector, and how should the sector recoup its money, its investment in water resources?
Yeah, what we're saying is that for now, we can take baby steps. First step may be contract management. Get the private sector to run the water boards efficiently so that they can meter, they can collect revenue, and plow back that revenue into running operation and maintenance of this without going back to government, so that, what Kashi was saying, that they can be stand alone and run on their own, viable commercial entities that can run, get their revenue and use it to operate and maintain and continue to provide uninterrupted service. What is wrong with that? So that's number 1. Gradually, we can come to a point in future where maybe the private sector can be allowed to run a particular scheme elsewhere, invest their money and do that. So we're taking baby steps in that direction. Other countries have done it, and they are running sectors. The most important thing at the end of the day is providing services to the people. I think that is what should be the watchdog. It's not who is doing it, but you should be satisfied that you come at any time of the day and open your tap in your house and there's water. And we cannot do this. We have known that government agencies do not have the wherewithal to be able to do that. So gradually we have to move to that. And that bill will also provide the necessary regulation to that effect. Because if there is no strong regulation, the private sector will not come in. We have seen, why did we get private sector to come into the power sector? It's because the regulation was put in place. There is a regulator. But
it's not the best of examples.
Well, it's not that. It's because it has not been operated the way it should be. But on paper, on all the things, legally speaking, that's what operates everywhere. But in Nigeria, our system is different because we have this attitude issue.
Okay, let me just ask Engineer Kashim my last question, perhaps. Water provision, water programs and provision is supposed to be integrated into SDG Goal 6. Yeah. And SDG is supposed to be implemented across board. Ministries, department agencies, and state and local governments. How can we get states? Because the minister has expressed great concern about how states, governments, and indeed local governments, are taking, prioritizing water. So how do we get, states governments to really give the desired attention to water? Do we revert water to exclusive list?
No, you see, the problem we have in Nigeria is we need reorientation on a large scale. People come into power sometimes and they are consumed by the same power that aspired, especially at the state level. The state, some places, they behave like emperors, some governors. So they know it all and they do everything as they like. So if you don't believe that certain things are out of your reach, that you have no capacity in certain areas and you must consult, you have problem. Even this whole idea of this integrated water supply management scheme is to bring water to the consciousness of everybody. We're talking about not valuing water here now. But if people, even as individuals, if we can appreciate and acknowledge our own participation, what are my responsibilities? Then we can do a lot of things. Today, but many things are still not being done well in Nigeria. Even if you see our roads, see the driving on the road. When the road is bad, we see the road is bad. When it is also good, it's another problem. Somebody can stop in the middle of the road. Or I was coming this morning, somebody just said, early in the morning, it was on the phone already, and driving, crossing lines without caring. So now, coming to water specifically, water is life. 73% of our body itself is water. If you don't drink water for 40 days, you die. Now, we must push for a recognition, to give recognition to the place of water in our society. We must push our leaders to acknowledge. The time for governors, when the commissioning boreholes is over. It's not we can't do that again. But if we have something, but because when there are no guidelines, people do things. Well, of course, the 4 laws are there existing, but nobody cares. But if we aggregate them and have a central point, there's one voice. So it's like a one-stop shop for water issues, and you now know you can go there, and that becomes the voice of water. Perhaps it could make a difference. Because Nigerians love good things. They love good results. Sure. But we must, but this time we're saying, let's take it upon ourselves.
But we don't want to work for it.
We are wasting time. This thing we are running away from, we must come to, at a point in our life, we must come to it. We can't run away for long. We're thinking that having oil is the solution to all our problems. Today, in 2023, in Europe and America, they will stop manufacturing
cars, petrol-powered
cars. So what happens? We'll be happy initially because they will dump those cars on us and will be excited. But those cars will get bad. We want to go and have replacement. We won't be able. So the things we need to do, let's start doing them now. We have the capacity. We have the intellect. But the challenge we have is that we have failed to put square pegs in square holes in Nigeria. And that is what is affecting us. So that our brains are draining, people are going out to help others achieve their own. The painful thing is that These solutions have been found in neighboring countries.
Engineer Kashimali, we thank
Small
you.
countries.
Yes, let's have the last word from the minister.
About this, and just speaking the truth from this moment. Honourable Minister, your final thoughts.
Yes, what's your message on World Water Day?
Well,
to Nigerians?
We need to value water. We need to understand that water is critical to our lives. It's critical to all the things we do. 3 years ago, when we had the World Water Day, the theme was water and jobs. And we were made to understand that 70% of all the jobs in the world are associated with water. We must stop paying lip service to water and take water as a serious issue, as a serious national issue. We should not be talking, I made a point recently, we should, you know, if we don't value water, we will not be able to put all the necessary investments that are required to do it. We should move away from vanity. Stop beautifying your cities when you don't have water on your taps.
Water resources.
We would like to thank you at this point, for your insights, of course, making our time to talk to us this morning on this issue of water. Minister Engineer Suleiman Adamu, it's been a pleasure talking to you again this morning.
Thank you.
Engineer Kashimali, Board Chairman, Federal Capital Territory Water Board, we thank you for your thoughts on the show this morning. Adebayo Alao, of course, we've lost him. We would like to thank you for your contribution to the program this morning, as well as Sheikh Umar, Acting General Manager, Quaran State Water Corporation in Lorry. Next, sports.
The squads for countries facing crucial qualifiers for the Africa Cup of Nations will be hit after all players in the top 2 divisions of French football were banned from leaving Europe. The 40 clubs from Ligue 1 and Ligue 2 agreed unanimously to prevent their players from leaving the EU and the European Economic Area because of the quarantine period they would have to undergo on their return to France due to the fears of COVID-19 transmission overseas. While upcoming South American qualifiers for the 2022 World Cup were last week postponed to allay such fears, the critical Africa Cup of Nations games were not. The news will undoubtedly leave many coaches scrambling to fill their squads. In tennis, this summer's Wimbledon Championships is likely to go ahead with a reduced capacity crowd, organizers have said. The Grand Slam is set to start on 28th June, 7 days after COVID restrictions are due to end in England. Tournament chiefs said they would react to changing circumstances, which may result in an increase or decrease in numbers allowed in the grounds. The overall attendance for the 2090 Wimbledon event, the last to be held, was 500,397 over the 13 days. Organizers did not specify how many tickets will initially be available for the forthcoming competition.
All right, that's Good Morning Nigeria. For today, we want to appreciate you. You can always join our conversation, of course, using our Twitter handle, but that will be on Monday. From me, Claire Delabo Abdurrazak, and the rest of the production crew, have a great weekend.
And I am Quaran Umayo. Bye for now.